Hi, everybody. My name is Jitsai Santaputra. I'm 30 years old. I currently live in Bangkok and I work professionally in the energy industry as an energy market consultant. And what I want to talk about today is more of my passion work, or I call it my advocacy work that goes alongside my professional work. And that really is, building communities and really trying to make the world a more inclusive place for young people. And the field that I focus on a lot is more in like the energy and now increasingly into more like climate action and advocacy work. My big bet is definitely that I am betting on myself and the young people that we can make the world a more inclusive place and more welcoming place by having young people involved. Now, I'm taking the strategy of showing it, just showing by doing. So I've been telling a lot of people that I wish there was more spaces for young people to get engaged. I wish for all these things. And I always say, like, I wish, why do these things not exist? And then at some point I decided, what is a better time for me to start something by myself? And where the worst case, it doesn't work out, and then I tested it out. But if it does work, there is so much upside to that, right? Like I can be like that one first spark, and then somebody else sees that and then says, "Oh, if they can do it, I can do it too." I think I want to pick out two just to highlight for this community, which I think really resonates with me and what I think that people would want to hear, is that I would jump first. I think, as I alluded to earlier, just even if you're not sure, sometimes you just have to take that first step. And I really do believe that that first step is always the hardest, or even just thinking about how to make that first step because you're not really sure about who is thinking what about you. And I think that's something that really stops young people because they think that, oh, to be successful, you must have experience. To be successful, or they look at really are people, who are successful in the limelight and spotlight, and they're thinking, oh, wow, but they have 20 years of experience. That's why they're on that stage. And sometimes that's just not entirely true. There are the truth to that, but there's definitely occasions and moments where it's more important to have that idea first and do it versus let's have 20 years of experience and test it out and then go try this new thing. So jumping first and taking risk is something that I do on a regular basis. I think, and there's so many things that we can classify as taking risks, right? The first time you reach out to a potential sponsor is a risk. The first time you reach out to a potential mentor, somebody you admire, and you're thinking, oh, I probably shouldn't do it. Like you're the first person to tell yourself no. So try to step back from that. Try to be the first person to tell yourself yes. And if other people say no, there's so many other people in the world, and eventually someone will say yes. I kind of equate it to like job hunting. I think when we're trying to find our first jobs fresh out of, school or college, or, you're always thinking like, oh, like there's also so much self-doubt because nobody has officially said yes to giving you like a job. But then after you have the first time, even if it's a no, then you're like, that wasn't so bad. I can do that again. I can go out and try, go out and, take those risks. Excited about, and I've actually never talked about it before on a public space, so this will be definitely the first one, is I'm now working a lot closely with like the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Thailand. So from my background, I've been more of an international person. I've like traveled around, I've worked around, and I grew up like in many countries. So I've historically not really been that close with how things happen in Thailand, which is where I'm living now and which I call home. But as a third culture kid, I always felt like, oh, like it's so hard to engage. I don't understand. There's so many bureaucracies, especially working close. Like the closer you get with the government, the more, top down it feels. And I feel like this is a body that I can't touch. So I've always did my mission more on a regional level, hence Youth for Energy Southeast Asia. But this year I decided that, it's another big bet on myself and jumping in first is that I want to engage and I want to reach out and I want to build this relationship and see, how I can make it more inviting to be part of and to engage with for young people. Because I felt growing up that I couldn't engage. So I kind of, unblocked myself in that sense. I have always kept that as my own roadblock. And I'd be like, oh, if I actually take that first step and get closer to them and not just be like, why don't you do this? Why don't you have youth programs? Then I might, be able to help. Just know what you want to do and know your mission. And the second part would be if nobody else is doing it, then why don't you do it? And that is the best one sentence that you can say to someone that is both encouraging, a little bit challenging, but more on the encouraging side. I had a long think about this question because I think there's so many people, but if there's one, outstanding person that I would want to, give a spotlight to would be my very first boss, my very first boss and my very first mentor, Dr. Wandi Kunchwania Kong Jinjarin. She's the CEO of SPCG, which is a solar energy company in Thailand that I worked for when I was fresh out of college. I sent hundreds of applications, nobody replied, and I interned at her company a few years before. And when I came back to Thailand, she asked if I wanted to join her, and that was literally the start of my energy and climate career and interest in the activism and advocacy role of it because she really championed like SDGs and she really taught me that it's not just about making profit, but it's her mission was to save the world. And having having solar power plants was part of that world that she wanted to save. And that was her big bet on herself. She actually started her company when she was 55 and she's a female CEO in the energy space, started 15 years ago. And that is very, very rare. If anybody on this world can tell you that that's a difficult thing to do, it was definitely her. She said banks said no to her because she was too old to start business. So these are things that, being a fresh grad and like being around her and just seeing how hard she worked to prove people wrong and to really pave the way for other people like myself. She actually took me to my first UNFCCC COP conference, which was in Glasgow, COP26. So she took me as her assistant, which she didn't really have to. She could do it all by herself. But she's like, I see your potential. She said to me, I see your potential. I see that you're interested in climate and saving the world the way I am. So come with me on this trip. And that was really the very first time I saw people on stage. I saw those communities. That's the first time I actually saw the Rockefeller Foundation and globally as well. And I was like, oh, there's all these organizations trying to save the world, both corporates, both NGOs, like international, like and other also young people at that space. And I was like, I want to be that young person. Next time, I want to be one of these people. I just happened to be there by chance, but then I'm like, oh, this is the community I want to be more involved in. So I was definitely inspired by being there. So I think she really, like Dr. Wendy, really opened the doors for me and really showed me that this was possible. So that's what inspires me. And then after that, there were so many other people, like Damilola Ogumbi is one of them, the CEO of SE for All. But like Dr. Wandi was definitely the very first person to show me that, despite what other people say about you being too old, being a woman, not a scientist, not an engineer, she could still do it, then I can also do it in this day and age.